Hi everyone, my name is Willow and this is Lucas, and today we're joined by Dr. Novog and we're going to be playing a game called Supercritical, which Dr. Novog will now explain.
In this game, the host will read out a topic and I will judge it as being either supercritical meaning too much hype, or subcritical, meaning that it is emerging technology that we should be paying more attention to. There's no sign for critical, so I guess it has to be one or the other.
Your first topic is fusion energy.
So fusion certainly shows up in a lot of media and in government policy and in funding. But the truth is, my very first scholarship was in the area of fusion energy, and this was a long time ago. And they asked my opinion during that interview of when fusion technology would be viable, and I said 25 years. And I just read in an article, a lead scientist from a US national lab looking at fusion was asked how long until fusion technology is viable. And their answer was 25 years. So fusion, the joke in fusion has always been, it is always a technology 25 years away.
Next up is small modular reactors.
This one's going to hurt. I'm also going supercritical. And here's the reason why. In Ontario, the independent system operator thinks we need 17 gigawatts of electricity. If we build very small reactors, microreactors, we're going to need hundreds or 500 of them. We're just never going to build that many. We need large reactors to make large amounts of power. And so that's why I think SMRs today will probably take a backseat to large reactors until we meet that huge energy demand first.
How about CANDOs?
Finally, I get the subcritical. As a reactor technology person, think all of the reactor designs are safe. So it's not based on one technology being better than the other. For me, it's all about supply chain and fuel. CANDO reactors were developed in Canada, so we have most of the supply chain, meaning that if we build them, most of the work goes to Canadians working in Canadian plants. And I think if we choose a different technology for large reactors, some portion of that will not be done here, and that would be a loss of domestic capability and a loss of money within the Canadian economy. The other reason, and it's really come up after Russia's invasion of Ukraine, is the availability of fuel. All the other reactor designs need enriched uranium to operate, and there's only certain countries in the world with enrichment technology. United States, UK, France. Being able to self-supply your own fuel with uranium out of Saskatchewan, fabricated in Ontario, and put into reactors in Canada means that your entire fuel supply chain is domestic, and that to me is the biggest benefit of Canada.
So next up we have deep ground repositories.
I'm gonna go subcritical again. Recently the news there is Nuclear Waste Management Organization, which is federally mandated to select and build an underground repository, selected a site just outside of Ignis, Ontario. We have a lot of experience with the nuclear reactor side. What we don't have experience and a solution for is the waste side. I think public acceptance of nuclear will grow a lot once we can have a complete picture to tell them that we know how to mine, we know how to operate reactors, and we know how to deal with the fuel.
A big question everyone will have is, once the DGR is built, will you go fishing there again?
Sure, yes. One of the things at the nuclear plants is a lot of times we have to chase away fishermen from the outfalls of the nuclear power plant because the fish sort of prefer the warmer water that comes out.
All right, the next one is carbon capture technology.
First of all, I believe that our grid should always have some natural gas capability. It's a mistake to think you can operate a grid reliably without natural gas. Natural gas power plant can turn on instantaneously and turn off instantaneously. It provides a lot of flexibility to the grid operator to be able to manage different renewables as they go in and out of service because of weather issues. And so I think having natural gas in Ontario's mix is necessary. Carbon capture, what people envision is we can put the carbon from these natural gas processes in the ground and somehow forget about them. This is not really how carbon capture works. The first thing is when we burn natural gas, for example, in a power plant, what comes out of the power plant is not just carbon dioxide. It's mostly nitrogen, right? Because it's a mixture of air and the burnt hydrocarbons. Air is mostly nitrogen. So what's coming out is actually not just carbon dioxide. And so you don't want to store all that nitrogen because that would be wasting the space of your storage facility. So first you need to separate the carbon dioxide from the other products. And this is a problem. It's really energy intensive to do so, and it doesn't make a lot of sense. So this is the first problem. Second problem is carbon capture has typically been associated with something that we call enhanced oil recovery. Many of those tunnels used to be oil wells, and it turns out by pushing CO2 down there, more oil squirts out of the oil well. And so you end up being able to store carbon and also get more oil. So that form of carbon capture is really not, I think, what the public's looking for or accepts.
Yeah.
What they sort of would like is some way to solidify the carbon, for example, in chalk or whatever, through chemical processes so that it turns back into a solid that can be stored underground. I think this is the long-term carbon capture, but I don't think any of those technologies are anywhere near deployable.
That's not any more efficient
No.
than the nitrogen separation. The next one is electric vehicles.
Oh, electric vehicles. So I'm going to give this subcritical. I think EVs, especially in a metropolitan area, should be, a no-brainer. I think they work great, they charge fast, pretty robust, they have way less maintenance. I think we could make a real big dent in our CO2 emissions as a country, because I mean, if most people live in large cities, then that's where most of the CO2 is coming from. So if we decarbonize that, it's sort of the low-hanging fruit.
And lastly, natural gas.
Oh boy. I'm going to abstain. As I said, I mean, I think that it's very difficult to build a robust and reliable grid that will attract new industries and so on to Ontario without having some natural gas to handle the fluctuations in the renewables. In fact, it is so important to renewables that in the EU, they voted at one time to classify natural gas as a green energy source, which most people here would say that's crazy. How can natural gas be green? But the thing is, you can't actually have a large renewable fraction of electricity without having the gas to go with it. But you can see the point that if your renewables are going to be 100% of your grid, for example, as an extreme, and the wind stops blowing, you go to zero, and your society can't tolerate that. So
It's
you need
one of the baseline.
Yeah. So you need something to quickly turn on and supply that electricity until you can figure out what to do. And natural gas serves that purpose. So I think it definitely has a role in the grid. The problem with natural gas is it's cheap, it's reliable, but it is still a carbon emitter. So it's really easy to say, I'm just going to build a natural gas power plant and then I'll build nuclear later, or I'll build more renewables later. But the truth is, once you build and you invest in a natural gas power plant, you're not going to shut it down. You're going to operate it for its life cycle. And we call that sort of carbon or natural gas lock-in. Because once you start building assets and you're a business person or government, it's hard to move away from here. I heard somebody speaking at a conference one time, is imagine you're an energy planner and you're premier of a province and you have this dashboard of all the solutions that are out there, nuclear and hydro and wind and solar, and in the middle is this giant button that is cheap, easy, and reliable. And you're like, oh, I'm just going to push that, and that'll be the natural gas button. And that's the problem with gas, is it's so cheap that it ends up displacing our movement to other energy sources.
All right, well, this has been super critical. Thank you so much, Dr. Novog.
Yeah, great. I give this whole process